Good evening, Dominica, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world. And welcome to another episode of Roots Connections on Q, right here on Q95, the big station. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing at this time, it is always wonderful to be in your company for another episode of Roots Connections on Q, our number one program for featuring the change makers in our community, the visionaries among us who are not sitting by the sidelines talking about what we need to be doing, but they are on the front line, walking the talk and showing us what happens when we turn our passion for Dominica into action for the benefit, the sustainable development of our country, our region, and our people in the diaspora. So our focus is on change as the only constant because we see how quickly the world around us is changing. So here on Roots Connections, we engage with our visionaries as we explore topics such as the changes we should be concerned about, the changes we need to make, and the changes we need to take advantage of. So it is great to be here. It is great to be here in your company. This is episode number 110 of Roots Connections on Q, and I am happy to be your host, Dr. Simone Mathieu. As always, we have another packed and engaging program for you, and we're very happy to be joined by members of the Dominican Association of Tampa Bay. They are no strangers to our program. They've been here with us before, but we are happy to be having them on the program today as we look at what is the role of our Dominican associations in securing the sustainable development of Dominica. So we're very happy to be joined by the president of the association, Mrs. Doreen Shillingford, as well as a member of the association, Mr. Leroy Danglar. But before we get started, let us always remember to pray for our beautiful country, Dominica, and the many challenges that we continue to face, we continue to battle as a small island nation. As always, we are grateful to you, our radio audience, as well as everyone who are joining us on Facebook and YouTube Live. We are live on Facebook at Push Past 10 and Q95 FM radio. And we're also live on YouTube at Q95 FM radio. So don't forget to share, let everyone know that we are here. Click the notification button so you will always know when we go live. And we're looking forward to your comments and your calls later in the program. Good evening to you, Lambi. Thank you as always for being on the console to take the questions, the phone calls later in the program. Sherwin Norris, our engineer, and Mr. G. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to do this important work. So let's give a warm Roots Connections welcome to our guests. And before we do, let me just tell you very quickly a little bit about who they are. So we're happy to be joined by Mrs. Doreen Shillingford, someone who is no stranger if you are from Dominica. So she's commonly known in Dominica as Honorable Doreen Paul. You will remember her well. She's a former Minister of Health and Social Security. She is currently an academic advisor. Leroy, mute your mic quickly, please. She's currently an academic advisor, an academic coach at Hillsborough College in Tampa, Florida. Her professional careers range from banking to politics to education. She is the president, as I mentioned, of Dominican Association of Tampa Bay since 2015. What a commitment. And so we are very happy to have her on board with us today. And then we also have Mr. Leroy Danglar, who is from Dominica, and he migrated in the U.S. back in 1980. So although he's been physically out of Dominica for a very long time, like all of us, most of us who migrate out of the country, our hearts and our minds remain in Dominica. So his field is banking and financial. He was a senior leader with Barclays Bank, and he also holds degrees in health administration as well as an MBA. So we're very happy they're joining us today. We have a lot to talk about. As we already said, we're going to be looking at the role of Dominican Dominican Associations in securing the sustainable development of our beautiful island, the Caribbean region, and our people, whether they live on the ground in Dominica or they live in the diaspora. So with that, let us welcome them to unmute their mics as they give us another brief introduction of themselves and anything they would like to share with their opening remarks, while I go ahead and share the link to everyone who's waiting to join the program. So Doreen, thank you for being here.
Good evening, Simone. Thank you for having me. And I want to say a warm good evening to Dominicans, both here in the Tampa Bay region, at home in Dominica, and throughout the world. I think you have done a great job, Simone, in introducing me. There's not too much more that I want to add to what you have already said, but I am indeed delighted to be here with my colleague, Mr. Leroy Danglar, and I trust that we will do justice to the topic that you have put forward tonight.
Yes, excellent. So Leroy, unmute your mic and let us know a little bit about you, your upbringing in Dominica, and anything else you would like to share this time.
Good evening, Simon. Thank you so much, and Doreen, also for having me on this show this evening. I'm really excited for this opportunity. I am just happy to be a part of it because of the affinity that we share. I'm a Dominican, born and raised in La Pointe Michel, Dominica. And as you pointed out correctly, well, I am a graduate of St. Mary's Academy. And beyond that, I worked with Barclays, held senior positions with them. I traversed the Caribbean, working with Barclays in various positions until it was actually in the early 2000s that I immigrated to the US. Again, it was part of getting my family up here, getting my son off to college. I continued working in banking, a little bit of I engaged in some aspects of it at the retail level, but I felt that I had exhausted my time in banking, and I sort of diverted into other areas of financial activity, such as investments, real estate. I hold a real estate license in the state of Georgia, and also insurance licenses in the state of Florida and Georgia. And so I am engaged in these activities. And more importantly, I would say, is the excitement that I share with Doreen in wanting to foster and sort of escalate, the association's objectives and see how we can continue to make a great contribution as an association with the diaspora, and to a large extent impacting our citizens in Dominica as far as sustainable development, among other things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much for that. So, by way of introduction, I just want you, Doreen, to give us a little bit about the history of your association, when you got started, your mission, your vision, your goals, your objectives. So, just tell us a little bit more about Dominica Association of Tampa Bay.
So we started off in 2015, as you mentioned earlier. A group of Dominicans came together, and it was really for the purpose of celebrating our independence. And we suggested that we would have a gala, a get together where people would come together in their national wear and just enjoy a bit of Dominica's culture, but also to expose people in the Tampa Bay to the culture of the Nature Isle of Dominica. So that happened. We started off with a steering committee, and it was not long before we officially elected members of the board. But we looked beyond just coming together every year around November. And we realized that we can do more for our Dominican community here in Tampa Bay, but also for Dominicans at home if we pulled our resources together, if we worked, if we did fundraising activities and other activities that would educate our people here in the Tampa Bay area and build up the resources that are needed, not only here, but also back home. So we are a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization. It means that those who contribute to our organization are receive their donations tax exempt, tax free. They can claim their contributions on their taxes annually. We are committed to assisting the Dominican community in the areas of education, cultural, health, and economic development, as well as humanitarian projects. And so we work collaboratively with organizations and individuals to create and maintain sustainable social and economic programs for the continuous improvement of our society here and also in Dominica.
Yes, excellent. And you know, a question that immediately comes to mind, and Leroy, you can feel free to chime in as well, because I know you're the newest, a newer member to the association. But a question that immediately comes to mind is, I know so many of our associations are struggling, right? I'm in several WhatsApp groups of other associations. I've reached out to other associations to be a part of programs similar to this. Some of them have disbanded, and some of them are simply struggling to just stay together. So, what do you think is the secret recipe for continuing for as long as you've been an association? Because I think that other associations could learn so much from your tenacity, from your ability to keep going despite any challenges that you might face. So, you know, off the bat, early in the program, I want us to kind of make recommendations and suggestions for other associations that are floundering, you know, they're not on steady ground right now. And even for those that have disbanded, for example, I know that there was one here in the Atlanta area, and it's no more. So what are your recommendations? Leroy, what are some of the things you have observed with Dominica Association of Tampa Bay that make it such that fortifies the association?
I think, and interestingly, one of the key things about any type of association, whether it's a group, it's the question of the commitment and leadership in particular. There has to be a continuous, passionate desire, and there must be a clearly defined goal, a clearly defined objective. We need to know what it is. It's not just a social organization, but it is one designed with specific objectives in mind that are measurable, things that are impactful, particularly to not only the communities, say for example in Tampa Bay and throughout the diaspora in the US, but more specifically for our home country, Dominica. And I will tell you this, which may be a key element based on your question. Even prior to my moving to Tampa, Doreen had already had contacts and connections with me and had almost indirectly roped me into the organization. So to a large extent, that demonstrates the desire to sustain the organization and the desire to identify and also recognize the key factors that are essential, the key goals of the organization, and how we can move it forward and how we can seek to just engage. And I think that that is the critical term, is the engagement of others. And we know with any group, there are some who would not demonstrate the same passion, but the continuous engagement and bringing things to the fore and helping people recognize the association, to me, is perhaps one of the key elements that has created sustainability for the association over time.
Yeah, that is so true. And Doreen, I want to come to you because you've been at the helm for quite some time. So how do you keep everyone motivated, engaged, energized so that you can continue to do this important work? Because I cannot tell you how many of these associations I've been invited to. And within a year, most of them do not even last a year. And the complaint is usually twofold. What Leroy said, the burden ends up falling on a couple of members to try to keep all the balls up in the air, to keep the organization going. But also there are issues with the leadership, because many times some of the leaders think that their only role is to delegate, right? So you do this, and it simply doesn't work. So what is your secret recipe that we can share with other associations in terms of how to be a successful association?
Well, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I want to mention the Houston Association, the Dominica Houston Association, and also DASI in Port St. Lucie, that have existed long before us and continue to serve our people. So I just want to say hats off to these two organizations. It would have been nice if they were here tonight, but they have really continued their efforts and in serving people in their communities and also in Dominica. So hats off to them. And I believe that Leroy hit the nail on the head. It takes commitment. It takes consistency. It takes dedication. It takes networking. Leroy said I reached out to him over in Atlanta when I first contacted him and we spoke. I saw his zeal, so it was easy for me to bring him on in the organization. And other people have reached out to us as well to lend their support. So organizations like us, members come and go. We have a saying in Dominica: "Tout chaud, tout flamme."
Show to flam.
Yeah. So you have those people, but you have others who will stick to it. And I want to commend my board members. Most of them have been with me since 2015.
Wow.
And we have faced many, many challenges. They have faced personal challenges, but they have continued to serve. And if I were to mention names like Apostle Norma Fontaine Filbert, when you see we have, if you remember during COVID, we did our first gala virtually. She was the driving force behind that. Dr. Melvin James, he is no longer a board member, but he's a consultant to the organization. Mrs. Esther Alexander, she was a former teacher. She still teaches part-time. She does not give up. Mr. McDonald Alexander, who passed recently, he was one of the pioneers of the organization. I want to also mention people like Jackie Joseph. Jackie is the firebrand. She's the PRO. Jackie is everywhere. And so most of these people, we also had a few people that have left and gone to the great beyond, Mrs. Joan Beaupierre and also Mr. Augustus Beaupierre. But these people never gave up. And so like Aaron and her, they held my hands up when the going got tough. And behind every vision, behind every visionary, you have vision carriers, and these people have carried the vision forth. And so I want to encourage other organizations. It's not easy. It's not easy leading diasporan organizations. We are very busy people with many, many commitments. The United States, we do not live close to each other necessarily. Traveling to events is very difficult. We thank God for the virtual space where we can come together, but it is very challenging. But if we are determined and if we work together, we can continue the process. And I look forward to Dominica Association of Tampa Bay being around for a very, very long time, because we have a great work to do.
I completely agree. And I did reach out to the Dominica Houston Association, but unfortunately, they were not able to be with us this evening. So a very special good evening to two of my very great supporters, Mr. Havis Badwell. Always great to see you. He's here. And I shouldn't say good evening. I should say good morning to Mr. Gordon Henderson, all the way out there in France, who is locked on and watching. Of course, we know he is the Calypso legend himself, the originator of our Calypso music. So Gordon Henderson, good evening to you, sir. Thank you for being here. Havis Neil Cuffey and Carlson Shillingford, thank you for being here. Don't forget, guys, share the live, share the live. Let everyone know that we are here for this very important conversation. So if you tuned in late, we are here with Dominican Association of Tampa Bay, and we're looking at the role of the Dominican Associations in securing the sustainable development of Dominica. So if you're joining us on YouTube and Facebook, you can already start chiming in on the conversation. And if you're listening, we will open the phone lines to you around 9 p.m. so you can make your contribution as well. But back to the association. So kind of just tell us some of your past successes, some of the different initiatives you have executed in the past, and then we will look at what you're currently working on, as well as the way forward for the organization. And we're also going to have a broader conversation of the importance of bridging that divide between Dominicans at home and abroad as we work on sustainable development. So tell us about some of your initiatives that you've executed in the past. And Leroy, you can chime in.
Mm-hmm. Our main thrust really has been on scholarship for Dominican students who are studying in the US. This is where the bulk of our funding goes to. This is the effort towards which we do much of our fundraising. Dominican students in the US, they face many challenges. The biggest one is financial. They do not have access to financial aid as US citizens or permanent residents. So a lot of times the burden is on the family at home. And even though some of them may have scholarships, it may not come in time. So we work very hard to raise funds to rescue them. They need to eat, they need food, they need housing. So it's very challenging for many of them. And over the past 15 years, we have given over $10,000 in scholarship to Dominican students studying in universities throughout the United States, not just in Tampa Bay. We've also engaged in disaster relief and humanitarian efforts. As you know, following Tropical Storm Erica and Hurricane Maria, we were able to send much needed supplies to Dominica to help with the disaster relief efforts. And recently, we were able to send supplies to 3 senior homes in Dominica: the House of Hope, the Grotto Home, and there's one in Maho as well. So we provide supplies to the elderly to ensure that they live a comfortable standard of living.
Mm-hmm.
And we provide healthcare assistance. There are Dominicans who come to the United States for medical care and who need some support. As limited as our resources are, we do try to assist wherever we can. And finally, our cultural program. Our cultural program is our greatest fundraiser. It's annual. We see Dominicans from across Florida come together for this very signature event. And this year, I just want to put it out there. Mark your calendar, October 17th, 2026 will be our cultural gala this year. So I'll pause here for now. Later on, I will talk about the networking that we do and the collaboration with other Caribbean organizations. So I'll pause here for now.
Yeah, so Leroy, if you want to chime in,
In
anything you would
fact,
like to share at this point.
yes, indeed. In fact, what Doreen has shared clearly supports our earlier conversation regarding what sustains the organization, because clearly the needs as we see it are greater than ourselves, and therefore there is synergy, there is energy, there is desire, and we recognize that financial resourcing is one of our key areas that enables us to provide much needed help, particularly in the areas of scholarships, in the areas of any health related needs, as Doreen pointed out correctly. And that is really our thrust. So any fundraising efforts that we initiate, our desire as always is to ensure that we have the full support of the communities that are close by, who are able to provide and be a part of these activities to enable us to raise the necessary funds. But that is what sustains us, because the community of students who have immigrated to the US, and not only to the US, but the various other colleges across the world, we seek to identify and recognize them, and as best as we can provide some level of support to them. And the hope is that at some point they would themselves be a part of the organization and make some contribution to ensure its sustainability over time.
Well, guys, once you say scholarships, everybody's ears is gonna perk up, right? So let's explore that a little bit more. But before we do, let me say good evening to some of my regulars who are always here with us, and I'm so appreciative of you. Greg Baptist, I see you. David Joseph, I see you. So guys, keep the comments coming. I will come back and take them in a little bit, but we're always grateful when you jump on the Facebook and the YouTube Live to make your contributions to our conversations. Yes, so you say scholarships and people's ears perk up. And one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit later is how we have to look at challenges, right? So how the whole visa ban is impacting our people and our region. But as we talk about scholarships, let's just kind of clarify that very quickly so that our audience has a better understanding of what you're referring to. So I think questions that might pop into the audience's mind is, for example, are these scholarships for people who are on the ground in Dominica trying to come to the States, or are these scholarships for students who are already here, who are kind of struggling and need assistance? And also the question of what is the criteria for those who are looking for the scholarship? So is it high school students? Is it college students? So kind of just tell us a little bit more, because I'm sure you said scholarship and everybody's ears just perked up immediately.
Well, as of last year, all our scholarships were awarded to Dominican students or students of Dominican parentage who resided in the United States or who were attending school in the United States. They may have been on an F1 visa, or they may be permanent residents, but they did not have sufficient funds to meet their educational needs. These students, so our scholarships are not full scholarships. Of course, we do not have the resources to fully fund an educational program. Right. So it's what we call scholarship assistance, and it's based on need. So the students will identify their needs. We also look at whether they are enrolled. We look at their GPA. We look at their persistence in college. And we look at what some of the challenges are. They provide testimonials, they provide essays, they provide backgrounds as to the reason why they need that scholarship. And it would be amazing to see, to read the stories that these students share. And what gives me hope is that as I see our students graduate with engineering degrees, business degrees, nursing degrees, chemical engineering, biological sciences, I have hope that these students can give back to Dominica. They said, to whom much is given, much is required. And I am expecting that many of them will in some way, shape, or form give back to our country and also to other students, whether it is in the form of tutoring, whether it is in the form of financial assistance themselves when they begin working. I'm looking forward to the sustainability, the seeds that we have sown in them, that it will spring forth and they will be able to assist others in the future.
Excellent. And the question also comes to mind, is there a referral process? So how does one get more information about the scholarships and the deadlines for the application? Is that on your website?
Yes, we promote it mostly through our WhatsApp group, because most Dominicans in the organization, they're part of our WhatsApp group, and then we share it on our Facebook page, on our website. But we also ask other people to share. We ask them to identify Dominicans who are studying, and we provide the criteria, the application form. They fill it out, they submit it, and we have an education committee that reviews all of the applications to determine who is this which student is most in need.
So, guys, stay tuned until the end of the program because we will be sharing the contact information for the Facebook page as well as the website so you can get more information about the scholarships, because I certainly know that many people will be interested in getting those scholarships. So, let's continue along just for a little bit longer. So, we did talk about some of your successes. What are some of the challenges? And Leroy, let me come to you for this one. What are some of the challenges that the association faces? Because I like to open up the conversation to talk about the challenges, because that is where I believe the public can support your efforts. You know, we live in a very digital world where we can all connect via technology. I mean, look at this, the studios in Dominica, I'm in the Atlanta area, and you guys are in Florida. So there's no boundaries in terms of us connecting. So I like to open up to talk about challenges so that if someone is listening and they can help with those challenges, they can reach out to your association. So let's talk about some of the challenges. Owen Prosper, nice to see you. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you've faced in the past or you're currently facing. So Leroy, what comes to mind?
Well, both in terms of the past and current. Generally, in fact, if we have to piggyback on the whole scholarship conversation we've just had, we would no doubt recognize that that involves dispensing of funds. And clearly, it takes us right to the core of it, which is limited financial resourcing. But limited financial resourcing is only one component. We also have human resources as well, a dearth of continuous supporting human resourcing that is necessary to move the organization's goals forward. The financial part of it is if someone feels that they want to make a contribution or donation to us for 10,000, 20,000, you'll be amazed how far these sums will go in terms of how we are able to, because the amounts and the contributions that are given by way of scholarships, as we said, they're needs-based and they're not substantial, because we need to be able to spread the limited sum across a broad range of students with specific needs. So we try to manage as best as we can the limited financial resources that we've got. And therefore, that has been the challenge. And part of our process and approach is to engage in activities, cultural activities, gala activities, any fundraising means that would enable us to be able to beef up our financial capability. But that in itself has limitations, and it's almost can be a struggle generally, but that will not and does not deter us. We'll continue to pursue and try and innovate, come up with new and fresh ideas for fundraising opportunities and activities. But the human resourcing part of it is also a limitation. Our goal and desire would really be to see a lot more Dominicans in the diaspora, in the Tampa Bay area, even across the U.S., engage and come on board and say, look, I want to be a part of the organization. I have skills that can be used to enable us to whether generate more income in terms of the whole organizational structure of the organization, in terms of its PR thrust, among other things. Anything that would move the organization forward and thus enable us to improve our resource capabilities. So these are two of the areas that I think has been the most challenging for us. No doubt there may be more. Doreen may have a few more that she may want to talk about.
Yes.
Simon, if I may interject, you mentioned earlier about whether those scholarships are available to to students in Dominica. Well, I want to say that it's one of the considerations that we have, particularly given the new policies of the US government concerning visas to the United States, including F1 visas. So we may very well have to pivot to giving most of our scholarships to students in Dominica for tertiary education, and also for those who may be going to other countries for to pursue their post-secondary education. So this is a consideration, and this is something that will be taken up in our upcoming meetings.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this is why the theme of this program is change is the only constant, right? Because there's constantly changes in this world that are impacting us whether negatively or positively. And that reminds me, I need to reach out to Attorney Tika Jude, because we need to continue monitoring that situation with the visa ban and everything that is going on. So are there any other challenges you would like to share with us at this time, Doreen?
I want to say that while there may be challenges, but we also have to look at opportunities. Every challenge comes with opportunities, and so how do we dive deeper into harnessing those human resources that Leroy talked about? How do we open up our organizations to invite more people to participate? Some people have a conception about our organizations. They perhaps perceive it to some extent as a club. It really is not. I want to say categorically that Association of Tampa Bay is very open and welcoming to participants, to what it is that you have to offer. And we look forward to many of you joining us when we have our next AGM come next March, that many of you will show up and also offer to take up positions on the board. Um, there's opportunities for us in terms of our operations and the things that we do and the way that we do them. For example, we used to have a lot of in-person activities, in-person meetings. But since COVID, we realized that we can leverage technology
Yep.
to have much more, to cover much more programs. For example, we have done estate planning, we've done financial management, we've done, there's a couple other educational programs that we have done via Zoom. We've done mental health programs, grief and loss. And so we are able to reach a wider community when we go virtual than if we just kept it local in the Tampa Bay area. So, like I said, with challenges come opportunities. We have to seek them out, and we have to leverage those opportunities to expand. The
Yeah.
other thing I would say is the other opportunity I see is that persons outside of Tampa Bay can support the organization. Because now that we are virtual, you can be in France, like Mr. Gordon Henderson, and
Yes.
you can support the organization. You can join us one night for a cadence little gig, virtually. There's so many fun, and that could be a fundraising activity for our scholarship programs, for our humanitarian programs in Dominica. So there's a lot that we can do given the new realities, and we just have to take advantage of them.
Yeah, and let me just chime in very quickly, because walk a mile, I'm seeing your comments, and let me just remind everyone that we're only going to read and accept comments that are not insults. So we're not going to accept people coming and insulting our guests on the program. So let's just be mindful of that, because there is an option to block you if you're in the comment section. And I will answer the question that you're asking about. You directed that question to Doreen, but I'm going to answer it for you in terms of why politics is not the focus of an association, because we all have a role to play. And there are many of us who are steeped up to our necks in talking about politics in Dominica. And that is the role that these people choose to play in terms of fighting the political battle that they see. If they see it as a battle, they choose to be a part of that. But here on Roots Connections, we are not a politically associated program, because we know there are way too many programs that are focused on politics. Instead, we choose to focus on our visionaries. So in case you missed the beginning of the program, this program, Roots Connections, by my design, focuses on the visionaries among us, those who are making a positive impact in the world to help to advance Dominica, our people, and the Caribbean region, especially as it relates to sustainable development. So walk a mile. I hope that I answered your question. Feel free to chime in as you wish. And if there are any insults, unfortunately, I'm going to have to block you, and anybody else who comes on this program knows me very well. So let's continue.
Let me also say something, that as a 501c3, we are guided by the laws of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And as an organization that seeks to foster community and bring Dominicans together of all persuasions, it would not be a good thing for us to take political sides.
Mm-hmm.
So when we ask people to support the programs that we do, if we appear to be political, guess what? They will say, well, it's not my side. I'm not contributing. I'm not participating. So we have to be neutral. But most of all, as a registered 501c3, we cannot engage in political activities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. Very well said. Yes,
That's
Leroy.
an extremely good point, Doreen, because clearly we want to be discreet, and simultaneously we want to ensure that we stick to our goals and objectives for the organization. Clearly, we do not want to have any type of distraction, if I may, in terms of our goals. And we do know that if we do that, and we do that consistently and do it well, clearly we will be above board in terms of our operations, and therefore the support that we need could very well flow as a result.
Yes, very well said. So a general question that comes to mind, as a community, as a people, do you guys believe we are doing a good enough job of harnessing, because we talked a lot about human resources, right? Are we as a community doing a good enough job of harnessing our human resources? I mean, Doreen, when I listen to you and I hear the degrees that our students are earning, and I think back to Dominicans have been migrating out of Dominica, since the 50s and the 60s and up to right now in 2026, and the amount of education and expertise we have acquired. Are we doing a good enough job as a society, as a community of Caribbean people, and even beyond Dominica, just Caribbean people? And that's for you as well, Leroy. Are we doing a good enough job of engaging our experts and really tapping into our human resources? What are your thoughts?
I want to say that to some extent we are, but of course, when you look at the number of qualified Dominicans, let me just start with Dominica. The number of attorneys that we have, the number of nurses, health professionals that we have. It's in some way, yes, we are harnessing, but there is still room for improvement. it's always said that we are small economies and we have limited resources, but we can open up the opportunity for them to contribute meaningfully in terms of research and development, in terms of the expertise in consultancies, in grant writing, to reduce the debt burden of our countries. There's grants, there's lots of grants out there,
Mm-hmm.
So there are people who have expertise in grant writing.
Yep.
And so we have to look at the opportunities and the areas of need of our various countries. What is it that we most need to push our country forward on a sustainable basis? And who are the people? Do we send out a call to Dominicans in the diaspora to lend their expertise? Say, for example, if we want to move from just the 2-year college to offering bachelor's programs, who are the people that we are turning to point us in that direction?
Mm-hmm.
So yes and no. Yes and no. And I think the same holds for the entire Caribbean.
Mm-hmm. Leroy, your thoughts? You're muted.
Yes, very good point that Doreen has made. And the
Mm-hmm.
diaspora really, I believe, generally has, in my view, a desire to aid with sustainable development in Dominica. And I'll tell you something, in fact, from studies that have been done, the diaspora actually represents some of the best skilled and best educated and those who have tremendous resources out here in the US and across globally. And therefore, to Doreen's point, yes, we have attempted to tap in and we've been successful. Not only our organization, but several others have been successful in tapping in those resources. But the scope, as always, exists for a greater degree of engagement and support. I think if we continue to bring the organization's goals and objectives to the fore and continuously at the forefront of the diaspora, then no doubt there will be at some, it's almost like, like dropping the bait, as it were. And somebody's going to say, yeah, I think I need to do something, but it has to be sustained. So we need to continuously, and not only continuously, but identify where the diaspora is scattered across globally. It's almost like mapping and trying to identify. In fact, just recently, I read where at a college in Illinois, there were at least 12 Dominican graduates with undergrads, graduate degrees, and one doctoral program. So clearly, with that information, we can try and see how can we reach these experts, as it were, and see how we can tap in. And they're young, they're full of vigor and energy, and have a lot to share and contribute, in my view.
And the reason I asked that question is because earlier on, Doreen, you mentioned the role of technology, right? Which I think is phenomenal. And there's actually a type of employee in the world right now called a digital nomad. And that is something I think we ought to be tapping into, because I hear a lot of people talking about, Dominican experts need to come back to Dominica, need to return home to develop their countries. And I'm like, no, that is the wrong mindset. We can all stay where we are and make a contribution. Or the other thing, which my friend Lester Barron did recently, is he actually went home. I believe he went home for maybe 3 weeks or a month, and he was working from Dominica. So the question I'm asking is, should there be incentives for those of us who are willing to make a contribution to Dominica, a real contribution? Should there be incentives for a digital nomad program where we can say, I'm going to Dominica, I'm going to stay at one of the resorts, right? I am going to make use of all the resources Dominica has to offer because I can work virtually, because I work virtually. I could be in Dominica for a few months working virtually, but there's no incentive for me to do so. So, what are your thoughts? Should there be an incentive program for those of us who don't mind being digital nomads to go to Dominica for a few months and work virtually?
Well, I would say that would be a good topic to raise with the powers that be in
Mm-hmm,
Dominica and
mm-hmm,
also with the private sector
mm-hmm.
because they stand to benefit
Yeah,
largely from
yeah.
something like that. But, education is at my heart. I work in education. And I always, we have a state college
Mm-hmm,
that can be expanded in terms of the program that it offers.
mm-hmm.
We have many people out in the diaspora who can be professors,
Right.
who can be faculty. They do not need to be in Dominica to be
Mm-hmm,
faculty at our institution. Um, is that something that, the powers that be would consider?
mm-hmm.
What are we lacking at that level? The other thing that, in my own experience, is how do we align some of the courses that we provide
Right.
at our state college with what students need to pursue a higher education so that they are not repeating courses
Mm-hmm,
or that most of the courses can transfer to,
mm-hmm,
say, a four-year university.
mm-hmm.
These are all issues because when a student has completed an AA associate's degree in Dominica, if we could get all of those credits to transfer, that is 2 years of fees, tuition, housing that parents are saving.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I like the idea of the nomad, um,
Digital nomad.
the digital nomad,
Mm-hmm,
and but again, people have to be receptive to
mm-hmm.
those initiatives. People have to be open minded and rather than knock down new initiatives,
Right.
say, Olazo Kalebe, nomad, digital nomad.
And it's interesting that you mentioned professors from overseas because I know for sure I'm a member of CAC, Committee Poetic Creole, and I know for a fact that one of our members, Lena Luke, she teaches Creole to the students at the State College. And guess where she lives? France. She
Exactly.
lives in France and
Mhm.
she teaches the students at the State College through virtual options, computer, if, in case anybody doesn't know what virtual options are, through online learning. She teaches the students at the State College. So you're absolutely right. And I want people to look this up. Look up digital nomads, and you can see what we're making reference of because it is an entire industry that
Mhm.
we could be benefited in from instead of having the 1 day stay tourists or having tourists that come and stay for only a week. We can tap into the resources where we have people staying in Dominica 6 months to a year. And the first time I actually heard about this was a young lady who wasn't even from Dominica. She found out about Dominica. She fell in love with Dominica. She came for a visit and then she decided she was going to come and stay for an entire year. So she was a digital nomad in Dominica. Now think about, the taxi fare she paid. Think about the housing. Think about the restaurants she supported. Think about all that she provided for Dominica in terms of financial support, economic development because she was a digital nomad. Now take that and multiply it by having thousands of people that love our island, love the nature, love the peace, love the tranquility, and they're willing to spend 3 weeks to a year to 2 years in Dominica. It is a real industry. Leroy, you have any thoughts? And then we're going to go to the studio. The time goes by
Before,
Yeah,
before,
quickly.
before, Le-
it's
before
Yes,
Leroy,
yes, go ahead.
before Leroy, there's also the flip side to it that
Okay.
Dominicans residing in Dominica can actually provide services
Yes.
virtually. They
Yes.
listen. A lot of people think that they need to come up here to make it, as they say. But rent here is extremely expensive. Housing here is extremely expensive. things are, the cost of everything is escalating. And during Dominica, you have skills, you have, expertise that you can lend to the world. And so we need to tap into those areas as well to see how we can bring in sustainable economic activity to our country.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I know of one young lady, she's offering sewing classes virtually. So she's in Dominica, and no matter where in the world you are, you can pay her, and she offers you virtual sewing classes. So you're certainly correct. Leroy, anything you want to share at this point?
Well, in fact, Doreen has coined it, excellently, and you also, Simon. Clearly, one of the things I would want to mention, though, is the question of identifying needs that are in sync with skills based. The skills that you've got and what needs that are necessary, the required. What do we see as the specific needs? But beyond that, too. On a much broader scale, there's the collaboration. If we're looking at it on a much broader scale, the collaboration between, again, Doreen mentioned the powers that be, and recognizing that even in the diaspora world, that there are people who are willing, eager, and have the necessary skills and resources to want to make that contribution. And so the key factor would be, are these opportunities available? Are they recognized? And is there collaboration?
Excellent, excellent. I'm happy we are exploring this just a little bit today, because it is a program that I want to do sometime in the future to kind of educate our audience a little bit more about this. And you know what? The opportunities are there in Dominica. I just learned about one particular village. I'm not going to call their name because, I don't want them to get any backlash for that. But one particular village in Dominica that is thriving. Why are they thriving? Because they have looked internally. They've seen what Doreen talked about, turning lemons into lemonade. They realized the potential and the resources they had at their disposal. They've created their own Airbnb system. They have built restaurants. They're engaging tour guides, right? By providing tour opportunities for those who come to, I almost said the name, to those who come to the village. And they've created their own ecosystem. Right? Now, does the government have a role to play in the development of our country? Absolutely. But do we also have a responsibility to take up the reins of our life and create opportunities for ourselves? And I was so impressed when I heard about this particular village, because I didn't realize that's what they're doing. But I won't call their name because we know everyone listens to this program. And I don't want people to go over there and say, well, now you got to start paying higher taxes because I heard of what you're doing. So let's leave that alone. So anyway, let's go over to the studios, guys. Take a break, take a water break, take a sip of water, and let's go over to the studio so Lammy can invite the callers to the program, and I will come on the Facebook Live and take a few comments. But before we do, we are here with Dominica Association of Tampa Bay, represented by the president, Mrs. Doreen Shillingford, as well as Mr. Leroy Danglar. And we're looking at the role of our associations in terms of securing the sustainable development of Dominica, as well as our region and our people at home and abroad. So Lamby, over to you for the calls. I think you're muted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. All right, guys. So we're going to jump on the Facebook Live. Lamby, let me know when you are ready. So we're going to jump on the Facebook Live. We mentioned Gordon Henderson being here. Havis, nice to see you. Neil Cuffy says, good evening, Doreen. Loved this lady. Always a patriotic Dominican. Coulson Shillingford, good evening, ladies. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right? Greg Baptist, nice to see you as always. Good evening, Doreen Paul. Well, we go Paul and Shillingford, right, Doreen? Doreen Paul, former parliamentary representative for the Layu constituency. Wow, he even remembers your constituency, Doreen. David Joseph, greetings and good night. I think we have a call coming in, so let's take the call. I hope we can hear it. Lamby, we can't hear you. We can't hear anything going on in the studio.
He's still muted.
Yeah, for some reason you're muted, and I don't know why you're muted. Let's see here. Nope. Okay. So you're muted. I'm not sure why, but keep trying. Okay. All right. David Joseph, thank you for being here as always. Greetings and good night to the panel and host. Lambi, good night to you as well, listening and watching as I look forward to another great program. So thank you, David. Thank you for being here. Walk a mile. We answered your question. Owen Prosper, good evening, patriotic families. I'm locked in. And Philson George, hi, good evening, Philson. Lovely to see you. We're gonna have Philson on our program soon. He does gospel music and worship music, and I can't wait for him to be on. He will be on with us in June, guys. This program fills up so quickly, so he will be on with us in June. And let's see who else we have with us. My mom, Medina Senhouse. Good evening, Dia Rose and panel. So thank you for being here, Mass Senhouse. Always nice to have you. We have a question from Walker Mile, and I think it's a good question we can take. What is the criteria to be a member of the association? So when we come back, Doreen, you can probably tell us what is the criteria for being a member of the association. Kathy Angle Winston is watching. Nice to see you. And let's see, she says, good evening, Leroy. Good to see you, cuz. So I'm guessing that's your cuz. Lambi, were you able to figure out how to? Okay, so let's continue. So let's start with that question, Doreen. Is there a particular criteria to be a member of the association?
And it's very simple. You're either a Dominican or a friend of Dominica.
Mm-hmm.
So we have people who are from Grenada. We have people,
yeah.
yeah. If you choose to be a friend of Dominica, we will welcome you into the organization. We have people who are married to Dominicans who are playing an active role in the organization. So it's open.
Good.
And
And
like you said, it doesn't matter whether you reside in
right.
Tampa or whether you're in any part of the United States and you choose to be a member of the Dominica Association.
Now, can you be a member if you're not in the States, if you're in Canada, if you're in Dominica?
Listen, I'm not going to turn away anybody.
I agree.
You're a friend of Dominica. You're a Dominican. You are welcome.
I agree. I definitely agree. So, guys,
We
thank you
talk
for
about expanding the opportunities
Right.
and overcoming the challenges. So
yes. Yes, definitely. So let's dive in again because you mentioned networking and collaboration. So tell us about your networking and the collaborative links that you've created over the years and how they are benefiting the association.
So there are several organizations, Caribbean organizations in the Tampa Bay area. The first one is the Caribbean organization is CANDO, which is the Caribbean American National Development Organization. That organization is headed by Mr. Francis, and we also have the Caribbean Community Association (CCA), which is a very very active organization. These two organizations in particular have assisted us tremendously in the post disaster area. They have been instrumental in collecting relief supplies, transporting relief supplies to Miami for shipment, getting containers. Their support for our organization in our fundraising efforts is phenomenal. And I just want to say hats off to Francis Joseph and Miss Evie Lamond at the helm of these organizations who have always supported the work of the Dominican Association. And I also want to shout out the Guyanese Cultural Network as well as the Garden of Grace Ministries. I mentioned Apostle Norma Fontaine Filbert. She is a Dominican, and her heart is in the work of the Dominica Association. We work collaboratively on several projects, including the feeding programs in Dominica. And we have the Brandon Caribbean American Cultural Association, who some time ago gave us many backpacks to send to schools in Dominica. So these organizations have helped strengthen our efforts and allowed us to achieve some of our goals.
Anything you'd like to add, Leroy? You're muted.
It's just again,
Oh, muted again. Try again.
yeah, I think I've got it now. It just, I just want to reinforce the importance of networking and collaboration. When we can work with other organizations, it creates synergy. There's a lot more resource capability, and we can broaden our scope. In fact, we can learn from their organizations as well and see what areas they are for cooperation and what we can possibly extract from their activities that we can incorporate into our own association for continued development.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that, because, bringing in that synergy is really a benefit. Let's try the studio again. Salambi, can we hear you?
Yes, let's take this call. This caller, you still there?
Okay, I was speaking to you all of a sudden I hear Simone's voice on the thing.
Yes, let's
I
move on.
wanted to say good night to Sister Doreen Paul. She's
Good
from my
evening.
Goodwill in CUM. And I heard her call another person name of Melvin Gibbs and some others. And I want to say to you, Sister Doreen, that the devil meant for bad, God said it for good.
Amen.
And I see that you are doing the work of Lydia and Tabitha, which you take care of the poor. So whatever happened to you in the past, God has turned it to good. And I want to encourage you and your group, continue. God is in the mix of it. He'll work it out. God bless you. I'm hoping to see you someday. And the others that join with you, keep on trusting God. Continue to pray. Continue to trust God. And you bring all to pass. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. God is in the midst of all that I do.
Amen.
He is the head of my life, and I continue to live and move and have my being in Him and allow Him to guide us. Amidst all of the challenges that we face as an organization, one of the things that keeps us going is what Jesus said, that we will look after the poor. We will look after those who are less fortunate. And I am deeply committed to that. Our board is deeply committed to that. And there are many people who believe in Jesus Christ on our board, which I'm very grateful for. And I think this is one of the driving forces, the impetus that keeps us going, because we see the needs out there and we want to do everything in our power to satisfy at least some of those things.
Yes, I thank you, Doreen. I think we have another call. Go ahead, Lambi.
Yeah, caller, please go ahead with your call.
Hey, Lambi, good night.
Good night, sir.
And Miss Mathieu, Miss Doreen. And
Good
the other
evening.
panelists. Yes, I don't know if you hear me.
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Hello?
Colin. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. I just want to embrace on everything you and your guests, the panelists, have been saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to times, I mean, in the 60s in Dominica,
Mm-hmm.
in the 50s, in the 40s, in the 70s, everything around us was cooperative, within the people in the villages. Everything you see they do, there was cooperative. The women would have, what you call that, a sub. It was cooperative. The farmers would have a group of people working together. It was cooperative. Just in the 70s, the Afimate formed the farmers cooperative all over Dominica. And if there was bananas and without bananas, like non-growing bananas, farmers would be involved. And you had farm to market. But Afi was an intelligent man. Just as one of your panelists just said, there is grant funds. So he write up a projects to get some grant funds. And I think they do some other negotiation by maybe traveling to some other countries where they could raise funds on their own. And they organize groups in Marigot. I mean, Lambert there, you can tell you that. The Candlelights, it was a group, cooperative. I think Dredex, and they get finance. They also get land from the government at the time. So exactly, and if we, I want to say, if you say we don't go back to those culture there, with the abundance of money some of us have and resources, we're going to still suffer because right around me I could see people with wealth, properties, and they're still suffering. And I know because of some of even their own reasons, the selfishness, stand and they're not making it because even today I was telling Matt on his show, look at Hardy Ball in Maho. I see Paben and Sobasm is trying to do something. As I tell them, they cannot wait on the government. They have to form a Hardy Ball foundation where they, as your panelist just saying, where they can get funds and set up a property for Hardy. Don't depend on the government. You can, from the beginning, from the architect, you will get help. From the merchants, you can get help. Because if you look at just Asa Banton alone, have a charity foundation, which is a cooperative, and he can give so much at the end of the year for children with less fortunate children, family that they need. So, I mean, those are the things. If you just go to Jamaica, you can see the same cooperative with the musicians, the contribution that have been made, and it's the former cooperative, a reggae cooperative. So I believe that's the way we have to go, in spite of what. And I believe we need more bigger education. I always tell Mr. Sheridan Danglar, you have to time shows when the people does be listening. Because if you look at Sunday night, DBS have an education program. Sunday night, Carrier FM have an education program. It's non-political, as you was just saying, non-political program. It's education, our history, our corresponding with even the neighboring island. If you look at now, Guadeloupe is building a new university hospital. And how do I get to know that? By packet program on Sunday night on Carrier FM. We have a Dominican who work with the embassy, and they correspond with Dominican news and Guadeloupe news. So that's how I come to know. If I could in that program, I would know. But I want to get back to you, Matthew. I want to tell you, educate your people. Don't give up. Sometimes you'll find despair, but don't give up. And this is one of the things I even tell the retired politicians, even from my village, Marigot, those that retire, form young people alliance groups and build up your community. I know where you're talking, Simone Mathieu, is in the valley. And you see the gentleman that in the States, he come down and he training the young people to work with cooperative, work together, clean up the village. So I'm telling my former pilot, I don't want to call their name, they know themselves, go on the ground and form cooperative. You have the Black Sand Beach, you have the White Sand Beach, you have all the rivers around you up there, develop it. Don't depend on the government. Like I said, all you are very, how you call them, motivated people. You can just, the same way we can raise so much money on the radio station to do other things, we can raise money to push some of those projects to make our village, because Marigot is a key location. You have cocoa industry up there, you have people doing processing. Why do you have to wait on the government? So
Yes,
I'm really encouraging of what you're doing, and have a good night.
Yes. So very valid points, caller. So thank you for that. The need for sustainable development to begin with us, right? So the need for cooperatives, and no, I was not referring to the valley. So before anybody thinks that's the village I was talking about, absolutely not. That's not where I'm talking about, and I'm not going to say where I'm talking about. But guys, let's dive back in, because I think an important aspect of this conversation is a broader conversation on the challenges that we are facing as a region, and the role that our associations play with those challenges. And one that immediately comes to mind is the disaster relief that we are always looking towards our association to provide. We considering now we have more Category 5 hurricanes that are impacting the region. So let's kind of talk about more broader challenges that are impacting our region. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, in fact, the diaspora, for example, I'm trying to focus on things like remittances. I know you have mentioned the challenges with natural disasters, but I just want to move quickly to the financial side of it, I guess, because that's an area I'm familiar with most. It's the impact and the benefit of remittances that the diaspora contribute to um, the Caribbean islands and the Dominica in particular. In fact, one study suggests that the Caribbean must have, I think, in 1 year, remitted over $131 billion to the Caribbean islands, and up to 25% of that is the expected growth. And for Dominica and many countries, that is a significant part of the GDP. People are relying on these remittances for various reasons. You know, it provides support for families. It helps with some infrastructural development. It helps with, for example, entrepreneurial investment options. People are building homes and supporting family members with businesses. If that is impacted or potentially drying up, that could create severe challenges for our countries, for Dominica and other Caribbean countries who rely significantly on these remittances because it's an integral part of the GDP. There has been talk at some levels in some circles about imposing some sort of fee or charge, as it were, and that is an added cost to our folks, our diaspora people who are willing and continuously transmit and transfer funds to family members in the Caribbean islands and Dominica in particular.
Yeah, excellent. And that's a very valid point. And the point I was making as well, with regards to the hurricane, is, it almost seems like we're stagnant in terms of moving forward in our development because we are constantly rebuilding. So while the remittances that Leroy just talked about should be going to helping us to move forward, it almost seems like it is always going towards rebuilding. So I see that as a major challenge. Doreen, your thoughts on that?
Okay, I will come to the rebuilding part, but going back to the remittances, we're going to be facing challenges also in terms of sustainability of remittances as our generations age and the younger folks are coming up. We realize, even for our organization, the fact that they're not participating, they're not coming around, they're not interested in, say, being involved in what we do. And so the children of Dominicans in the diaspora, when our generation is gone, they may not be as vested as we are, because everybody else will be like a distant cousin. Everybody else will be like, they may not have the brother sister relationships. And if the doors are being closed on migration to certain countries, it is going to pose a severe challenge in terms of the remittances that are being sent to Dominica. So that's one aspect of it. In terms of the hurricane and these other natural disasters, I think after Hurricane Maria and Tropical Storm Erica, we realized that, and not only Dominica, but other Caribbean countries, the Virgin Islands, St. Martin, the Bahamas, we realized that those hurricanes are becoming more frequent, those category fives, and it is clearly a sign of climate change that's taking place. I remember when Hurricane David struck Dominica in 1979, I understood that it was almost 100 years before something like that happened. Now, almost every year, we are at risk of getting one of those hurricanes. And there is no easy answer to the question of rebuilding. I think it is Michelle Obama who coined the phrase "build back better." I hope I am right on that. I quoted it correctly, but build back better. In other words, we cannot build back the same way that we did in the 50s, the 60s, or even the 80s. Um, our structures have to be much more sound. Um, the experts, I mean, I'll leave that to the expert to discuss, and that is where again the expertise from the diaspora comes in. We live in Florida, and we're just as vulnerable to natural disasters, to hurricanes. And so the experts, I believe, need to sit around the table and discuss what it is that we can do in Dominica to mitigate the impact of these disasters.
Yeah, and I'm happy you brought that up, but I'm also happy that you brought up the idea of the next generation not being as engaged with and as passionate as we are with Dominicans. And I'm just going to be very candid. I fault myself for that because we have a 14-year-old daughter. I'm Dominican. Her dad is Haitian American. And I think what happens is because we are not living, for example, in New York City, where she would have been completely immersed by going to the parties, by having the friends come over and learning the Creole. I think she has been deprived of that. But something else I realized that is within my own control is that I listen to all this Dominican music, Kadas and Buyo and Soca. And I realized a couple of years ago, I was always listening to it on my iPod. So it was always in my ears. So she wasn't exposed. So what I've decided to do is now when she comes from school on the weekend to play it on the speakers in the house. Because how are we introducing our children to our culture if we are not immersing them in our music? And I think music is an easy way to introduce, and of course the foods that we eat. So she does eat the Dominican food. She loves Dominica food, but we can do a better job in terms of using music as a way to attract our young people to our culture, as a way to get them excited about our culture, because that is a serious concern. And I think it was Amma who was on a program with me a couple of months ago who really honed in on the fact that the barrel economy, the remittance economy, while it is essential, and I like how you put it, Leroy, at one point, you said it is essential, but it is not sustainable. So I think that is going to be a tremendous challenge for us. And we keep thinking as humans that we have time, and we don't have time because our children are growing up very quickly, and they're creating their own little social hubs. They're very much Americanized, or if you live in Canada, Europe, and it is our responsibility to ensure that they're just as passionate about Dominica because that is their heritage. That is the heritage we have to try to pass on to them. Leroy, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is phenomenal because broadly across communities, nations, sustaining culture can be an uphill task if there is not continued effort and thrust to retain it and passing down. It's like the generational sustenance of culture, as you mentioned, music, among other things. But the thing we got to consider also is, for example, there is approximately maybe 25 to 30,000 Americans living in the US, and probably much more than that broadly across other parts of the world. And that's like first generation. But yet, when we look at the second and third generation, we're looking several hundred thousands. And that is a massive core and group of people. And so the question, and as you've pointed out, is the tapping into these second generations and the lack of, should I say, natural investment. We say we are Dominicans, and so we are vested in. I mean, I was born in Dominica. That was where I got the first stages of my life, my growth, my development, my schooling, among other things. So the core and, was built there. And therefore I am vested in Dominica to a large extent. But then the second and third generations, they're like, wow, this is just, I love Dominica because it's my parents' home, but I'd visit maybe 2 or 3 times a year. I love it. But would they want to move back to Dominica, whether as digital nomads or physically getting back to Dominica? That may not be a priority for them. And so there is a great challenge for us in seeking to provide some level of sustenance and continuity by way of dialogue, music, cultural expressions. And I'm just pleased when I see the level of cultural engagement and involvement at our National Day celebrations and our other cultural activities around November 3rd. Throughout the entire month in November, I mean, it's strong, the expressions are strong, and my real desire would see that sustained continuously, but also effective in the diaspora communities, yeah?
And that is one of the reasons I always focus on sustainable development, because as we see the next generations will naturally gravitate away from Dominica. Unfortunately, that is the reality. We have to think of how does the people on the island support themselves in a sustainable way. So that is one of the reasons. And Doreen, I just wanted to ask you, because we know you have that cultural gala coming up in October, and I'm sure you guys will be back to promote that event. We'd love to have you come back. But is it a conduit to invite the youth to, immerse themselves in the culture? Do you find that they're not interested in being a part of the celebrations?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. But I would say that we need to work with the parents. If their parents are on board, if their parents are fully on board, and encourage them, especially the little ones, those at a younger age, encourage them to come out and participate, get involved in the dances, in wearing the cultural costume. I'm making them for my granddaughters, making sure that each of them have their cultural wear. If we can do that, let them constantly see themselves in those photos, put up their photos, in their cultural wear, and remind them of their cultural heritage. That is very, very important. But it will take some doing on our part. It has to take some incentive on our part. What it is that we can do, probably do an award, for them, anything to bring them in. We have to become very, very creative in getting the young people to come out to our events. The adults do it very well, very, very well. Last year we had almost 200 at our event. So we want to encourage more to come. And also because the other organizations in Florida, some of them have dwindled, some of them have died out. We want to encourage not only people in Tampa Bay to come out, but across Florida to come out to the event this year on October 17th.
Yeah, because it would be great if you can absorb the members of the associations that are no longer in existence. And, we talk about culture. I don't want folks to think every time I talk about culture, all I talk is music, because our last program was on the cultural industry. So, yes, also the importance of fashion, as you just mentioned, dressing up our young ones in our traditional wear, the importance of, we talked about cuisine, the importance of our arts, the importance of our literature. So we have so many options. So just kind of being a little bit more mindful of how we can get our young children. And, they will never understand our struggles, right? So it doesn't matter how many times we relay the stories of growing up in Dominica under not the best of conditions. They will never get it because they've never experienced it. But how can we ingrain in them the heritage that we know is so important to our own development? But guys, we cannot.
And if I may add quickly, yes. Simone, because my son is in the Atlanta area as well, and he's a music producer. And he produced a song most of you might know, Zeze. It is a song that is a fusion of bouillon cultural music. As a matter of fact, he introduced it with one of Tradibell's song,
Oh,
and yeah, but what he did with it was make it appealing to the US, to the young people in the United States. And so I am in school and I'm saying to one of my students who is Native American, born and raised in America, not Native American, but born and raised in America. And she's listening to the song. And I said to her, "What does that mean? Baby, please don't take me for a zeze." And she was like, "Please don't take me for a fool." And I'm like, how did you know? How do you know? She said, "Well, context." But the thing is, he is seeking to promote. Being raised here, is still seeking to promote the culture. And I heard you talk about music. I thought I would do that. Every event that we have, our cuisine is indigenous Dominican cuisine. Every event that we have. So you won't come to our event looking for what is it? Italian food or pizzas or anything like that. You're gonna get your baked and saltfish. You're gonna get you're gonna get your fried fish. You're gonna get, oh my God, everything Dominican. And when breadfruit is in season around here, we try to incorporate breadfruit as well.
Doreen, you have my mouth watering over here.
I had to whet the appetites of the people in Florida, so to make sure that they come on October
Oh,
17th.
absolutely. And I'm happy you mentioned your song because Philson George was just on here and he's in the music world as well. So we're actually doing a program in June. And I would love to invite your son. So off the program, please free to introduce me to your son via WhatsApp or text so we can
Absolutely.
have him come on to be a part of that program because I would love to promote the work that he's doing. Yes,
Thank
definitely.
you. I will.
Yes, but we cannot have this conversation in a vacuum, right? Because one of the greatest challenges that we still face in Dominica, and I can only speak for Dominica, I don't know about the other islands, is, bridging that gap, bridging that mindset that we still struggle with, that mindset of us versus them, us in Dominica versus you who quote unquote left. So, how do we bridge that gap that always seems to be so alive whenever you're on the ground? And from the time someone realizes that your accent is a little bit different, you get the sense that they're thinking to themselves, well, you left and I stayed. And you see the vitriol on Facebook. That is what is very concerning. When you see that level of vitriol on Facebook, the attacks on Facebook, there's one popular singer, her husband had a complete rant on Facebook about you all left. So how do we come together? How do we change that mindset that talks about that reveals that we're in this together, right? It is not us versus them. It is how we can all bring our skills, our talents, our expertise, and our resources together because we all have one goal to develop Dominica and to develop Dominicans at home and abroad. What are your thoughts?
But that thinking is still pervasive in many
Yes.
circles. In
Yes.
fact, at one point prior to emigrating, I shouldn't say always, at one point I had the view or the thought that the immigrants who lived in the US or Canada or Britain or elsewhere were far better off, as it were, than us in Dominica. My mother emigrated to Britain in the 50s when there was mass immigration to Britain, and when she talks about the struggles that she endured and over the years just to make a living, and a lot of folks don't realize that it's not a bed of roses, when you are in another. I moved to the US but that didn't mean that I completely overlooked and forgot Dominica, because as far as I'm concerned, that is my root and source. My goal was to, as many of us do, is to look for opportunities and broaden our scope, broaden our perspectives, and all with a view of looking back and seeing how we can make contributions from where we are towards Dominica's development in our small way, using our now acquired skill set, now acquired, you could say, a certain level of wealth, now acquired knowledge, and therefore it's the important thing is there has to be that continued dialogue as we are having now. So your program in itself, Simone, is really a splendid example of how we're able to bridge that gap. We're able to help folks recognize that we may be miles away physically, but there's still that closeness, there's still that desire, there's still that recognition of our culture or various cultural components, and that we still want people.
Absolutely. Doreen, your thoughts?
I think that there's probably not a day that goes by when my thoughts are not in Dominica for some reason or another. And I think that holds true for many, many Dominicans who are in the diaspora. Yes, we had to leave. Yes, we sought opportunities abroad, but those opportunities have not only benefited us and our families, to a large extent, our efforts, our work, our remittances have benefited persons who have stayed behind. Um, and I can speak also, I identify with Leroy. Before coming to the United States, I had a certain perception that everybody was in the US, their feet were in oil, and money was just coming out of trees. And but when you come here, you have even greater challenges. You have challenges with acclimatization. You have challenges with just belonging, a sense of belonging. You're on your job, and everybody does not look like you on your job.
Or
You go
sound like you?
or sound like you, so you have to speak a certain way, to be understood.
Yep.
It's not because you want to have an accent, but people keep asking, what did you say, what did you say? Um so there's so many challenges that people in the diaspora, and we sit here and we look at what is happening at home, and we're like, I want to go home. I want to go home, something. So I want to say that I wish that we would look at each other differently. Everybody who leaves Dominica and go away is a Dominican at heart. And everyone may not be able to do as much as another person. We all have different challenges, but by and large, our hearts are in Dominica. And so, for those of you who reside in Dominica, I want you to take a look at all of us on this platform and know that every day we are working to ensure that our country is a better place. Whatever contribution that we make, coupled with what others make, in other parts of the country and in other parts of the world, every bit of it helps to build our country and to make it a more sustainable nation. So I think we can speak with one voice. I think we can um, stop eyeing each other, stop looking at each other as they're better than us, or they think they're better than us, kind of thing. And just know that we are all Dominicans working with one goal: to develop our country.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that we talked about the way we sound, right? Because a simple thing, when I first left Dominica, I moved to Texas to go to university, and a simple thing as my name was an issue because my whole life growing up in Dominica, my name was Simone, right? Isn't that how we pronounce it? See, I got to the States. What's my name now? Simone, right? Because I had to adjust. The Simone is a French pronunciation. So when we went to Paris, everyone called me Simone, right? When they saw my name. In the States, my name is Simone. So simple things like that. So I think we've all had the same conception, the misconception that, again, just like you guys, when I lived in Dominica, I thought everybody in the States had a tree, a money tree in their backyard. They could send us this, they could send us that. It is only when you come here to the States, you realize the struggles that we all have to go through to try to make our way. And in the meantime that we're trying to make our way, we're supporting our families back home. Right? So we're here trying to start a completely new life, and we are still trying to support our family back home. So I really like the role that this program is playing in terms of showing us here overseas and those of us on the ground that we are the same. And I think if we focus on that one goal, that it is not us versus them, it is how we can all come together and see how we can benefit. Because with technology, with online banking, guess what? I can support your business in Dominica. If you have a business idea, if you're selling some stuff right now, imagine on Friday, my cousin has to take a cab to go from Portsmouth to Roseau. I can pay for the cab for her because I have more banking. So do we see how it is not a division? It is about let us change that mindset so that we can come together and we can benefit from each other. So I think, the greatest challenge that we continue to face, and it will take time, it will take effort, and it will take, when we go home that we don't have the mentality. I don't do so, but people give the impression of, oh, you come from overseas, you're looking down on us. Or people are saying, oh, bon Dieu, how you living in Dominica now? That place so dread. So maybe some of us need to change the words that we are using when we go home, but those of us on the ground also need to change our mindset. Because
Simone,
in my mind, that is the greatest obstacle. And until we are able to overcome that obstacle, we cannot make the kind of progress we could make as a people with that obstacle lingering over our heads. Leroy, what were you going to say?
you just took the words right off my mouth, because it's a lot of it has to do, could be our own attitudes when we are back home. In other words, what perception do we portray that seem to imply that we are better than you because we live out in the diaspora, you see, and so that in itself, because there is already that perception of us. So if you now portray it, it just reinforces the local perception. And therefore, that is one of the ways in which we can avoid that sort of behavior. But also, it is also important for everyone to recognize that our commitment in the diaspora is, to some extent, I could say, perhaps even greater, because as you rightly pointed out, the efforts and the energy and all that we need to put in for ourselves to establish ourselves and still provide support to family members back home really requires commitment and dedication.
And put it this way, I do not know one Dominican who has left Dominica who's not supporting somebody in Dominica. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a connection. A mom they left, a cousin they left, a friend they left. I do not know anyone who lives outside of Dominica who is not in some way financially supporting somebody. So guys, let's just, take it one step at a time. And Linda Joseph said that's true. So, kudos to you. But let's just work on the words, the attitude on both sides, the attitude we are taking with us when we go to Dominica and the attitude we have in Dominica when we're, and you know something I hate when people do when I go to Dominica? First of all, they say, hey, you here? And I'm like, I'm not a ghost. And then that question, I'm sure you guys get it when you go home. When you leave in, I think we need to eliminate that question altogether because it almost says to me, I'm not welcome here. Why do we do that? From the time people see you on the ground, they want to know when you're leaving. And I'm like, this is how you're going to welcome me back to my island? So we have a lot of work to do. I think what it boils down to is we have a lot of work to do. But again, you know, just raising the awareness and figuring out how can we overcome that important challenge of that mindset that keeps dividing us is a very important topic. So guys, the time is closing in on us, but we want to talk about the way forward. What are your future plans? Any advice that you want to give to any potential Dominica associations that are thinking of forming, to those that are probably struggling? So, you know, some recommendations and the way forward for your organization before the time runs out on us. And do me a favor, Doreen, in the private chat area, can you post your website? And I will share. Do you see the private chat area? Or you can WhatsApp it to me. Just WhatsApp it to me and I'll post it. I want to make sure I get it right. But Leroy, the way forward as Doreen is doing that. You're muted.
I keep forgetting that. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
I believe as during the course of the discussions today, we talked about challenges and opportunities. And one of the option that we have is to identify opportunities for expanding our scope as an association and making sure that we are known in terms of what our scope is, what our vision, our mission, our purpose, what are we seeking to achieve, and try and reach as broad a community of the diaspora as possible, and seek their continued support in as many ways as they possibly can. So we want to continue to champion, you know, the organization in many ways. We also need to sort of minimize the barriers that we have to engagement, getting folks on board, and wanting to be a part of the organization. And I'm so happy that throughout this conversation today, there was a question regarding how does one become a member of the association. And we welcome, as Doreen rightly pointed out, anyone who loves Dominica, is affiliated with Dominica, or has connections with Dominica. Please come on board, be a part, because your skills, resources, capabilities, knowledge, information, all of these are tremendous assets that we can tap and that we can use to catalyze our goals and create sustainable development for the diaspora community, and also more particularly for the Dominican community.
All right. So, Doreen, I was looking at the website you sent. So I think there's an error because it's coming up as an error. So I think it's datbdom.com is probably the website, right? I wanted to just double check before I posted it. So let me go ahead and post that. So if you're listening on the radio and you cannot see the comment section, the website is www.d as in David, A as in Apple, T as in Tom, B as in boy, DOM.com. So let me test it out first before I post it to make sure. Yes, so during the way forward, your future plans.
So in terms of the future, I think we as an organization need to revamp. There are, like I mentioned before, there are new challenges, global challenges that are affecting us in Dominica, and is also impacting the response of our organization. I mentioned education, but by and large, even the kind of assistance that we give to Dominica could be under the microscope. It's
Mm-hmm.
like nowadays nothing is off limits, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be very mindful not only of what we do, but how we do it. Um, how public we can be with some of the things that we say and do. Leroy mentioned discretion. And so we also have to look at probably new areas of need. If we're not able to provide scholarship to students because many more are not coming to the United States, can we support students attending the state college or even high schools in Dominica with our scholarships? And I want to mention that this year, last year, we launched the McDonald Alexander Scholarship for the first time. As we know, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. McDonald Alexander, who used to be the principal of the Dominica Grammar School, passed away. And the family collaborated with us to launch a scholarship in his honor. So this year at the Cultural Gala, we will also be raising funds towards that scholarship. And I invite those of you who are old boys of the Dominica Grammar School, all students of Mr. McDonald Alexander, to support our scholarship. If you reside in the US, you can donate to our fund, to his scholarship in his name via Cash App. It's $DATBDOM. That's DATBDOM 78. And if you're giving via Zelle, it's via our email, datbdom@gmail.com. So that's a special appeal to the old boys of
Mm-hmm.
Mr. McDonald Alexander. And
Yeah.
just going forward, for us to be to continue not being discouraged by what we see happening, but looking for every opportunity, every avenue for us to continue the work that we have started.
Very well said. And so, again, if you missed any portion of the program, guys, remember you can always check the replay. You can hit the replay on Facebook and YouTube at Q95 FM Radio, push past 10. So let me repeat the website, the email account, and there's a phone number listed on your website as well. So I'm going to include that. So again, the website for more information, www.D as in David, A as in Tom, start over, www.D as in David, A as in Apple, T as in Tom, B as in Bravo, DOM.com, and the email address datbdom@gmail.com, and the phone number area code 813-297-1182. Again, 813-297-1182 for all the information. And remember, you can be a part of the association even if you don't live in the Tampa Bay area. So final thoughts as we wind down for this evening. And I want to thank you, Leroy. I want to thank you, Doreen, for being a part of this conversation of educating us on the role of the associations, Dominica Associations, in securing the sustainable development of our country and our people. So your final thoughts as we wind down.
Leroy, go ahead. I'll come after you. You're muted.
Thank you. Simone, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to share with your audience what our association has been engaged in, our goals, objectives, our vision, mission statements, our activities, and beyond that, and more importantly, what we are hoping to achieve despite the challenges, both globally and regionally and locally. But that is not going to deter our passion and our desire As we said at the beginning, the organization has been around for a good many years, and we expect it to continue because there's a thrust, there's a desire, there's a vision, there's impetus. Something drives us to be able to provide sustainability, not only for the organization, but for our support for Dominica, and as many as we can assist and help appreciate what we are doing and how we can continue to provide sustainability in Dominica for Dominicans.
Yes, thank you for that. Doreen, your final thoughts?
The Dominica Association of Tampa Bay exists because we are committed to realizing the goals and objectives that we have set to provide a better life for the people of Dominica, both here and in Dominica, and also in other parts of the world. To do this, we are going to need the support of as many Dominicans as possible, irrespective of where you are. So tonight, I want to launch a special appeal that you can join the organization, provide your expertise to the organization, and provide your financial support to the organization. Simone, I want to thank you so much for having us. I think this was a very valuable discussion. We needed it as an organization. We want to encourage other organizations, those of you who are dwindling, to join us. We welcome you. I believe that we can do more with more of you, more hands on deck, as we say. But I also want to say that those of you in Dominica who have been on the program, I want to thank you for lending us your ear, for staying with us for 2 hours. And I hope that what we have shared tonight will encourage you to continue to support our organizations and do whatever you can for the development of our beautiful country. God bless you.
Yes, very well said. And thank you for being here, guys. So as always, we are grateful to be on this journey with you as we continue to harness the power of technology, international radio, social media, and podcasts to leverage the skills and expertise of our people around the world. We continue to build that capacity needed for the sustainable development of Dominica, the Caribbean region, and our Caribbean people around the world. And the question I always like to leave with the audience is, what is the role that you can play? As a matter of fact, my mom was just reminding me that we recently had a friend of ours pass away in Dominica, and we were able to virtually send him flowers. So we were able to stay here in the States and pay for the wreath that was added to his burial. So again, let us stop looking at the negative and look at the opportunities to create a better Dominica, sustainable Dominica. So what is the role can each one of us play with that mission of turning our passion for Dominica into action for Dominica and our Caribbean people around the world? Don't forget to follow Push Past 10 and Q95 on Facebook. And we would love to hear from you if you're doing, not if you're thinking, but if you're doing something that is going to positively impact Dominica and our people. And we're very excited. The next program, we've already had a reach out from the Monjan Riviera Cyric reunion committee. So they're planning a reunion sometime, I believe, in July. I have to look at the information. So they've reached out and they will be our next guest. So guys, the only thing that I ask when you email me, and the email address, pushpast10@gmail.com. So www.pushpast10@gmail.com. The only thing I ask is that you try to reach out at least a month in advance of your program, anything that you are hoping to get promoted, at least a month in advance, so we can schedule you to be a part of the program. So our listeners, our callers, our Facebook viewers, whether you jumped in and you participated in the conversation or you listened quietly, thank you for being with us. Mr. G, Lambi, the Q95 family showing, Thank you for keeping us connected to the world. So again, if you tuned in late, we were talking to the Dominican Association of Tampa Bay, and we talked about the role of Dominican associations with securing the sustainable development of Dominica. And we are very happy to be joined by Mrs. Doreen Paul and Mr. Leroy Danglar. So I am your host, Dr. Simone. It is always great to be in your company, and we look forward to being with you for yet another engaging program. Owen Prosper says, great program tonight. Truly enjoyed the listening. And guys, you will be amazed the amount of people I talk to on the phone. And they keep saying, yes, I love your program. So thank you so much for the support. In all earnesty, thank you so much for the support. It is because of your support that we continue to bring you this program every second and fourth Wednesday of the month. So Lambi, Leroy, Doreen, good night. Thank you for being here. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your week.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Good night and God bless.
All right. Good night, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
The Big Station. Dominicans journeyed beyond our shores for decades in search of economic opportunities and educational advancement. Many are ready to give back to their cherished nature island. Welcome to Roots Connections on Q. Join Dr. Simone Mathieu on Q95 as we tap into the life and times and expertise of our nature island Dominicans at home and abroad.